Every ADHD founder is busy, but very few actually build a business that they're capable of. Now, I know this feeling all too well. I spent 8 long years with every day feeling like I was pushing a boulder uphill. That was until I learned the lessons that I'm about to share with you today. Now, for those of you that are new here, my name's Jack Taylor, founder of The Hunter Brain, which is a coaching and consultancy business that's designed to help entrepreneurs that are higher up on the ADHD spectrum, or as we like to call it, having a hunter brain, align both their life and their business to the brain they have so they could grow faster whilst doing less. Now, I'll be real, what you're about to watch wasn't made for the internet. It was recorded in a private room full of 6 and 7-figure ADHD founders at my private mastermind in London. But the feedback from them was so great that I wanted to share it with you too. Now, by the end of this video, you'll be seeing the new way that ADHD founders should be viewing their business, how to identify the single thing that is stalling your progress, and a decision-making framework that's used by the elite in business that will help you to overcome the ADHD paralysis that you may find yourself in. As a quick heads up before we dive in, it is recorded live and is pretty much uncut. So you'll be able to hear the room and be fully immersed into the day as if you were there with us. And make sure you stick around to the end because there is an exercise that you'll likely want to do yourself. Let's get into it. Grow the business or unblock what the current constraint is inside of the business. And being able to answer that is like almost impossible if we don't have a session like today, because everything just like permanently feels important. Like you can have a broken link on the website, you can get an arsey email from a customer, chargeback, cash could be tighter than you'd like it to be. And especially because of the brain type that we have, like our brains then treat all of it like the building is on fire. Everything feels like equally important and equally urgent, just permanently. So as a result of that, we then end up just like firefighting all day and all week. And that's when we finish a working day, we are shafted by 6 o'clock, even though you feel like you've been incredibly productive all day, i.e. like very busy. But the problem is, like week on week, month on month, the business hasn't necessarily moved at the proportion of your inputs and how hard you feel you've been working. And I say that because like I spent probably 8 years in that position. And like nobody introduced me to these things, and I wish they did. And as many of you know, because I talk about it frequently, I spent an inordinate amount of money on like help, coaching, consulting, mentorships, etc. And a lot of them were, as they do, like giving you tactics and telling you like what to go and do and things like that. And you'll all notice that that's not really something that I do for you guys. Like I don't necessarily dish out like here's the newest kind of trend that we should be jumping on when it comes to marketing or anything like that, because I actually feel that can be more unproductive than actually productive. I give you guys the principles, the questions and the frameworks so that you can ascertain what that constraint is inside of your business and make sure that we're focusing on the right stuff. And you can then be, moving through every week with confidence that the work you're doing is actually moving that needle in the business. Like how many of you feel like this most weeks? I know that I can still feel like that. Yeah, right? Good. Then I've made the right thing. If no one raised their hand, we're in a lot of trouble there. Yeah, literally. Right. So that's the hunter brain, right? At play. We are phenomenal at firefighting and being reactive to what we see in front of us, but we're pretty terrible at deciding which fire actually matters if there's more than one that's present at a time. And that's like, if I just go back for a second, just from like a brain type perspective, it's obviously I try and move away from like the ADHD label. You all know why. But with this kind of hunter brain, we have a bit of a different kind of executive function. So a part of our brain that works slightly differently. And the way you can view the executive function in the brain is like the CEO of the brain. So it's the chief organizer, it's the conductor, it's the person that tells us what we should be doing and when we should be doing it. And our one of those is on holiday all the time, right? So if there are like multiple things that are going on and multiple challenges, which there will be because you're in business, we find it difficult to be able to ultimately decide which one we need to be working on at any given time. And that's when a multitude of kind of scenarios can happen. We can work on the wrong thing, which is really prevalent. That's probably my biggest one. Or we can be paralyzed by the amount of things that are kind of seemingly on fire, the amount of bins that are on fire, and we do nothing. And we kind of stay in this state of kind of paralysis and shock. And that's, again, what I want us to try and overcome. Now, this shows up in 2 ways, and I want you to really just like see which camp you sit in and if you recognize yourself in either of these. So first, you make everything a little bit better. And what I mean by that is you do a little bit more marketing. You tidy up the offer a little bit. You sort and tinker with the onboarding. You fiddle around with the systems. You spend like, days and days, weeks and weeks building a system, a Notion system, a spreadsheet or something like that. You make it look all pretty and you get all these nice little functions on board. Austin looking away. And then we never use it, right? Guilty. Guilty as charged. So ultimately what we do in this kind of like zone is we improve everything by like 5%. And what this then means is we're ultimately like trying to work on all of those fires that I've just kind of highlighted at the same time, and we're diluting our efforts and our attention across multiple different things. And at the end of the quarter, you feel fucked, right? But you look up and you're in the same place or very similar, right? You've been busy pretty much everywhere, but forward nowhere. And again, I've spent so many years there, I don't even want to say. So the second one is a little bit sneakier. So when something slows down, let's say like your sales slip, instead of fixing what's broken, i.e. like sales being the constraint, you go and you build something brand new, right? Cool. It's funny that there's like...
done it in some capacity, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's like, I can see that there's a split in the room of like one camp and the other, which is great. Ultimately, as I say, like there's a symptom that we see, say like conversion rates have maybe slowed down, and we then are like, because it's uncomfortable, and again, we'll touch on this in a bit more detail later, the discomfort and the difficulty that's associated with like spending time doing that thing can be overwhelming in itself. So we then be like, oh, let's go do something that's a little bit more fun, right? Let's go build a new landing page. Let's go build a new offer, whatever it may be. Because we get a ton of novelty from it because it's new. And with novelty comes a high level of dopamine, which we are dopamine junkies. And I am the king of this one, right? So again, this is something I've had to manage in myself, that like in my old business, it was super prevalent that my positioning and my messaging was a huge issue because I wasn't getting the amount of clients that I could fulfill. So I would just go and make a new lead magnet, or I'd go and like start a podcast, or I'd go and do something else, which wasn't actually solving the problem of positioning. I was just like doing more stuff. And lo and behold, it didn't fucking work. Now there is one way out, and that is finding the one thing that is holding it all back and giving yourself permission to ignore everything else. So let me show you how we do that. Meet Herbie, right? So what I'm about to walk you through comes from a book called The Goal by Eli Goldratt. So the story goes like this. There was a scout leader that takes a troop of kids on a hike through like a forest, and they're all in single file. So take yourself back to school where they keep you in single file so they can see everyone. Now he wanted them all to get to camp as quick as possible because it was starting to get dark. There was one kid who was Herbie. He was a bit of a bigger lad. He had a massive rucksack on like everyone else, and he was slow, right? So what happened is that there was a line of kids. Herbie was around kind of like the back third, and he was slow. So all of the people in front of him were breaking away from him, and there was a huge gap and a massive distance between Herbie and the rest of the crew, right? So the fast kid shut off, the line stretched, and Herbie basically was holding up everyone at the back, and the leader was at the back. So the leader then yelled to the front and was telling everybody to hurry up because he was like, we're going too slow, right? Guys at the front, hurry up. But what happened was nothing. He at the back didn't move any quicker. And the line just stretched further. So the kids at the front stormed on ahead, but that gap got bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's because the pace was never set by the front. It was set by Herbie, right? So him telling the people at the front wasn't actually to speed up, wasn't actually going to solve the problem of speeding Herbie up. So ultimately what he did is he put Herbie at the front because he realized that he was the bottleneck in us getting to the camp. He stripped Herbie of his rucksack, gave it and distributed out to the rest of the kids. And as a result of that, they all got there significantly quicker. Your business is going to be the same. Your business will move at the speed of its slowest part. And that's the point that I want you guys to recognize with that story of Herbie. And that is kind of how this business theory came about. And that's how I want you to think about it, is that we can misattribute where the problem is inside of our business and end up solving the wrong thing, but that doesn't actually change the business results we're getting. Right now, every one of you has a Herbie, right? You're going to have a Herbie inside of your business. Now, this principle has now got a name, and it's called the theory of constraints. Now, a lot of you will have heard of this because I've kind of intermittently talked to you about this. And this is a law that we want to operate by when we're running a business. And it is a law that the likes of Toyota with their production line, same with Amazon, and many great businesses run off of. And I owe a big chunk of my success to it as well as what they do, especially over recent years. And what it basically means is that there is always one constraint in the business, minimum. One bottleneck that is going to set the entire pace of your system. Now, your job as the founder, which all of you are in this room, is to find it as quick as humanly possible, to then fix it and put all of your resources to it, forget everything else, and then allow the rest of the line to ultimately walk in pace and catch up. Now, one of the things I'd like you guys to do today is to change the way that you view and see your business. I want you to stop seeing it as this giant to-do list, which this is how I viewed business for such a long time, is that because there's so many different functions of a business. And again, if they all feel on fire, it feels like we've got this never-ending, ginormous list of things to just permanently tick off. But when we have a huge list of things to tick off, it's really difficult for us to be able to then prioritize the order of which do we need to be working through them. And that's when we're approaching our business like a to-do list. Instead of that, and approaching it with 100 jobs that are just shouting at you all the time with no order, as I've just said, which is going to make you feel in this permanent state of overwhelm, which again is how I felt for 8 years. I can't tell you how different I feel in this business to what I've done in the past 3 businesses that I ran. I just was in this perpetual state of overwhelm and just fucking hustling all the time with nothing getting done. And it's so frustrating. So instead of it being viewed as this giant to-do list, I want you to start viewing your business as a pipeline. The water is everything that you pour in, right? So the water that's coming from the tap is everything you pour in. That's your time, that's your effort, that's your marketing. And the bucket on the other side is what we all want out of business. So cash, clients, freedom, whatever that may be. All the reasons you're in business. And every single person in this room, your pipeline runs through 4 stages to simplify this for everyone. No matter the industry you're in. Stage 1 is attract. Do enough people know that you exist? So this is where marketing and leads and things like that come in. Convert. Do enough of them then convert into clients. So this is your offer, your sales. Deliver. Do they get results? Do they stay for a long period of time? And do they keep spending with you to increase the LTV? This is where fulfillment and retention, those types of conversations come in. And then we've got scale, which is quite a big bucket. And that is, can it start to grow without you and your hustle every day? So this for each business can look different. So for Stephen, for Taria, for James, this is likely going to be team, and for James, cash, things like that, because they have an investment-based business. But maybe for the likes of Ian, and actually, to be fair, you'll probably be in a team and systems as well. But Ewan, Charlie, myself, Austin, ours is probably going to be systems, right? If we are likely going to be the sole face and delivery mechanism of the business. So here's how the whole pipeline looks. It's got 4 stages, tap to bucket, like this. Right? This is the way I want you to just visualize your business moving forward. Instead of it feeling like this giant to-do list, we're going to start operating in this kind of pipeline way. So we've also got attract, we've got convert, we've got deliver, we've got scale. And that is almost like a client journey as well that we can thinking. Because ultimately, as you'll see in a minute, if we've got blockages here, nothing else downstream matters. So your pipeline is pretty much always going to have more than one kind of clear blockage. They're going to come in different sizes. The biggest one is going to be your constraint. And it's typically the one that is going to the biggest one and the one that's closest to, we have 2 ways of basically ascertaining which one do we need to focus on at any one given time. It can be both or either or. The biggest that's causing the most backup of water and swamping of water, or the one that's closest to the tap. Now, the mistake that a lot of people make is they fix the one that is nearest the bucket, because that is where it's closest to the point of which that we get paid and we get the result we want. And again, this is what I did, like I explained earlier. I had a positioning problem, which is right in the attract area, but I would spend fucking countless days, weeks building out back-end systems and SOPs for my VA. None of that mattered. That's the scale. That's that end. And I'm thinking that matters, one, because it's new, novel, etc., but because it's closest to the bucket. I'm if I solve this, then it's I can feel the fact that it's closer down the journey of a customer journey. But because I had a problem upstream, none of the water actually went through. And what you can't see is that there's obviously the throughput here from the tap. There's a lot of water. There's a large blockage here, which means that all of that water is backing up. And the water, as you can see, is like incredibly like thin here because nothing is getting past that constraint. So me then like removing that constraint there doesn't actually change the throughput of how much water is going to go into that bucket. It's still a constraint that at some point needs to be solved, but not now. Because me solving that doesn't actually create a meaningful difference in like moving the business forward at this point in time. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does anyone else kind of resonate with that? Has anyone got an example that they can give? Yeah. Right. And that's what we were saying the other day, right? Is like, this is a big one for people who are starting like a new offer or something like that. It's like, I need to get everything ready. I need to get like so much done so that when they come in, it looks fucking awesome.
There's one before that for me, which is that I just need to decide what to do myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
Just pick one and go for it.
Yeah, 100%. What's your experience like that?
Which one?
The second one, picking.
Oh yeah, I think the first 6 weeks we started working together, I had an offer to become a partner in an agency or go just all in on mine, and we spent 6 weeks, essentially, you guiding me through that decision, and then
Make a fucking decision,
yeah,
man.
it's like, and yeah, it's like before you actually make that decision, it's so difficult to then plan out what you're going to do over the next. Yeah, and you can spend so long in
I
process.
spent like 2 years in that
Yeah.
position, and I know that I'm the bottleneck before we even get to the bottlenecks.
Yeah.
You know
And that's why I think like I'm not actually finished it yet, but I was reading through the LBI thing you sent me, and it makes it so much easier to make decisions when you figure out like what kind of lifestyle you want to live, and then like based off of that you pick right which business model is going to facilitate that. So that's really useful as well.
Awesome. I'll pair you two together as well because I'd love for you to, I guess, like just walk Tara through the decision making process that you had to go through to make a decision. Because obviously you ended up making a decision, and in doing so, what happened off the back of that? Because as we say, like, if we're at a crossroads and it's like I either go left or I go right with a decision that needs to be made, that's the only thing that's going to occupy all of your attention and your energy. Like you can't then plan for anything beyond that because each one of those kind of roads leads to a totally different place and requires different things from you. And that was kind of the thing. That's why I amped up the pressure towards the end and I said, don't turn up to our next call if you haven't made a decision. Because for as long as that we're paralyzed by the decision-making process, we've lost momentum and the car has stopped. And like for brains like ours, that is the worst place to be because that's when we start overthinking everything and we start thinking like, am I cut out for business? And like, what's wrong with me? And why does everything feel so hard? And that's why I say to all of you all the time, as long as we keep the car in motion and like in a state of momentum, it's easier to keep it in a state of momentum. As soon as that car's parked and it's stopped, like one person on their own probably can't move it. It's like really difficult. But as soon as we get it moving together, one person can actually continue to keep it moving. And that's why like I want you to always optimize for like fast decisions. I spoke about this. I haven't actually got this planned, but I spoke about this again. I didn't plan for it at the mastermind either, the doors, but this was something that landed for a lot of people. So I'll share it here, like a decision-making matrix or process or whatever. I think it's Jeff Bezos. He has a decision-making process, which is like really interesting. And obviously the guy's built probably one of the most successful and interesting businesses on planet Earth. So it's called, I'm pretty certain it's called type 1 or type 2 doors when it comes to decision-making. So a type 1 door is a door that once you've walked through it, if you don't like inside of the room, you can walk back out. Right? So that is, to be honest, like 80% of the decisions that we need to make in business, like the initiatives, the launching a new offer, the testing a new kind of ad campaign, whatever it is, these are all reversible doors that we can come back through if it didn't work. We then have type 2 doors. These are the ones that are, once you've gone through the door, you can't come back, right? And that's a very small amount of decisions that people have to actually make. But this could be like investment decisions, things like that, like where, let's say if you took a massive round of investment on and that meant that a certain person was on your board, you get a month in and you're like, this guy's actually a bit of a dick. It's like, we can't walk back through that door without obviously giving up investment. And I think even then it's probably, you get penalized for doing so, whatever. So that's a really helpful framework to use for like making decisions, because it should then help us to almost like give ourselves permission to be like, right, I'm able to recognize this is a type 1 door. And that's permission to be like, whatever happens, I can always just come back through it. And that's helped me with like to act with speed, because again,
If you're in a type 2 though,
Mhm.
what is the point where you decide one way or the other? What point do you get to go?
The caveat to this is set a deadline. It needs to be an appropriate deadline. So the way that he operates is that a type 1 door doesn't need signing off on. So it doesn't need like a huge boardroom meeting like this inside of Amazon. I think it would need signing off on. So I take that back. It would need signing off on for like permission from whoever is above. But for example, Bezos doesn't need to be involved in the decision-making process, right? Because even if it goes wrong, we can just undo what we've done. A type 2 door needs conferring amongst all stakeholders to help to make the decision. And the caveat here is that you then need to put a deadline on the time of which you're going to make a decision. Because I'm sure many of you heard me talk about like Parkinson's law before, which is that a task will take the time of which that we've allocated to it. So it will just occupy the space that we give to it. So the example I always give is if I give myself 30 days to tidy my room, it will take me 30 days. If I give myself 30 minutes, it will take me 30 minutes. Nothing really changes other than the fact that I've added a constraint onto it, which has now forced me to take action sooner. Barack Obama also, in an interview, which I found really interesting, actually prior to the 2-door kind of theory, I guess, spoke about this. He was interviewed before and someone asked him, as like pretty much head of the most powerful country in the world, how do you make peace with making like world-changing decisions? And he said that I give myself a deadline, which is dependent upon the actual decision that needs to be made, but there's always a deadline. And then when I get to the deadline, if I am 51% one way and 49% the other way, then that is what the decision gets made. And I make peace with the fact that at that point in time, within the deadline that I gave myself, I gathered as much intel and information as I possibly could to make an informed decision. And if it's leaning one way, I make peace with the fact that that's all I could grab at that point in time. Because we are always fearful of like, what if I make this decision? But as we all know, like we're only able to connect the dots looking backwards. So the reason why a deadline is so important, especially for our brains, is that it creates urgency, which again is where dopamine is held, which gets us into gear. Example, I've given you all kind of like worksheets and stuff to do before. How many of you do them the day before? Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's urgency there. If I said get it done whenever, you would never do it. So like because I said don't turn up to the next call unless you made the decision, lo and behold, we made a decision. I don't often care what the decision is. And I think again we overanalyze it because we think that, you know, but they can both be good. And it's true. Like most decisions have upside on both of them, but we can't live our life and run our businesses where we're just constantly paralyzed by like making decisions, because otherwise we don't go anywhere. And our competitors are going to take over, because we'll notice, you may notice, I bet you notice this as well. A lot of like good business owners are fucking stupid. And it's because they just don't think and they just keep, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And it's like, that's it. It's retard maxing, right? And it's just like failing fast, failing often and failing forward. And I think like we're often worried about getting things wrong. But again, that's why like the type 1 door framework is really helpful. So like, as long as it's a door that you can walk back through, give yourself permission to make quick decisions. And if it's a type 2 door, set a deadline and be like, my mission, my only mission from now until said deadline is I've got to gather as much intel, resources, speak to as many people as I need to help me make a decision. But I'm making a decision on that day. And then we make peace with whatever comes after. Because as long as your life, your health, your kids are not in danger, most things are a type 1 door.
On type 1 as well, you learn more from making the decision than actually like weighing a fever option.
100%.
One's like Harmar says, where it takes you, for example, 2 weeks to make a decision. You as a business owner can make 2 decisions a month, where if I make one every 2 days, and 15, yeah,
100%.
I've got 15% more, 15x more knowledge just from making the decision.
Yeah.
And like, just look about and find out, innit?
Yeah.
As long as you can come backwards,
Yeah.
like, just
Yeah, I resonate with the like decision paralysis, because I think before working with you, I spent a good 2 months like figuring out, oh, should I join this agency, should I not, and like not weighing up the pros and cons or anything. And I didn't make a decision, and obviously neither of them made progress. And then I think even if I went for what now I think would have been the wrong decision, if I did that on week 1 and then found out a month later that was the wrong one, then at least I know, and then you can go with the other business knowing that
100%. And
feedback.
the example again, I go back to the T-junction, right? You're at a T-junction, and it's like to what Stephen was saying there, right? I'm here and I can go right or I can go left, right? There's the one you're doing now, and you've got the care home kind of agency vibe. us being paralyzed, like we waste time. If I was like, let's say someone else, and I went, let's go down this one. I walk down here and I go, nah, this won't right. And then I go back down here. I've learned all the lessons from going down there and all the intel, and I've gone down there, and you're still stood here.
Yeah.
Right? So I end up to the destination quicker than you did, whilst also learning all the lessons that I needed to learn on the way.
Yeah, I'd probably still be there if you didn't set the deadline.
Right? And most of us would be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, again, one of the biggest things that I want you, even just if this was the only thing you took away from today, speed of which that we can make decisions. Because again, we have like this duality of the brain where we have on one side, we can be really kind of impulsive and spontaneous and things like that to pull the trigger. And you'll probably notice this in your personal life or on certain things inside of your business. And then we can be, and then we can be really slow to make decisions in others. And that's your Herbie.
That's
Right?
literally me down to the T. Like if you said to me now, let's go out and do something, let's go on holiday, I'm not before you finish your sentence.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But when it comes to business and making serious decisions and what way to go, sit on it for months, if not years,
Yeah.
before working with you. Do you know what I mean? So
And that's that, like the Herbie, let's say there's certain, because I know there's certain elements inside of your business that you are really quick to act on, right? You build shit so fucking fast. But if your Herbie is there, it doesn't matter how quick you build stuff, because he's holding the rest of the team up.
Yeah.
Right? So, helpful. And to what Austin said, ideally, like as a framework, I would usually opt for like trying to pick the one that's closest to the source and closest to the tap. Because if we're, as an example, which I've experienced tremendously, if you don't have any leads, you don't have a business. Here is what everyone gets wrong. We may have already gone through this, but when cash feels slow, the instinct is, we haven't actually, the instinct is to pour more into the top. So more water, more leads, more marketing, more hustle. But if that blockage is still there on that incy little graphic that I showed you, the extra water, effort, marketing, whatever that we put in is just going to back up and overflow. And what this actually looks like in real life, so I take it away from a metaphor for a second, is where you've got leads in your DMs, leads from your ads that are just going cold. How many leads have you got that have gone cold? Cool. That must make you sick.
So many of those haven't followed up. I mean, it's just so typical. It's like the dopamine hit when you think, oh, that's a good idea. I'll get loads of eyes out on the ground that can be scouts for me. So I'll do a little scouting affiliate thing. Blah, blah, blah. Put the post out, get shit tons there. I don't mind.
Yeah.
It's gone.
That's the dopamine. When the link.
Yeah. Bored now. Like that.
And then you just block.
Precisely. And that's the overflow, like the, you know, that kind of speaks to the overflow that is reflected in so many different ways. So we'll use you as an example if you're happy to do so, not that you have a choice. Why do we have 40 leads that have not been contacted from also ones that you've paid for?
Yeah. So, I went away on holiday. 4 or 5 days. Came back from holiday.
You walk in there.
And then just didn't get onto it, and then I got it.
But
There's no excuse not to do it.
no, for sure, and I know, but it's like there's some form of constraint, and it can look different each time. But like figuring out what that is, like I think for you is a number of different constraints. I think there was uncertainty around the offer because we're transitioning into a different type of offer, and it's like because we don't have that like fully mapped out in your head, being perfect with all like the whole school platform mapped out with all the modules. It's like I can't sell them just yet.
I also didn't know whether I was selling them online when that's
Right? So lack of certainty. But what we've done is like we've created a backup and a backflow because we've not filled the constraint. Good man. Good man. So just like a perfect example, and how this will kind of look for everybody is going to look totally different, but just like understanding the theory, understanding the model is going to be super helpful for you to be identifying where there are kind of like this swamp, we can call it, in the pipeline. Again, clients left waiting, chaos before the bottleneck. That's what all of this looks like. You know, you've worked twice as hard solving that problem down on the wrong end. Like we've said, sorry to continue to pick on you, like sorting out all of the modules for clients that we do not even have and leads that are waiting to be sold. Now, there is only one place that effort turns into money, and that is the constraint, right? If we work anywhere else, nothing extra is going to reach that bucket. Now, narrowing this down and like adopting this, and ultimately what we're doing is we're like changing our scope, is not only going to make things faster, but it's going to make things calmer for you. So I want to think of your attention like a camera. Fucking Nightmare.
You don't zoom out?
Don't know. I don't want to touch anything in case it breaks.
Yeah.
This is risque. Right. So there's there's a little camera there. So I'll walk you through it anyway. So when you zoom out wide, like your field of view is incredibly wide as well. So let's say these are all of the things that are in that pipeline that could potentially be worked on or improved inside of the business. When we are like not using the theory of constraints, we're not viewing our business like a pipeline, we're viewing our business like a list of things to do and so on. We're looking at everything. We're looking at that big list inside of some document that probably never gets looked at or whatever it is. And that is incredibly overwhelming, right? Because you've got so many things that are on your radar all of the time. And you're like, fuck, I don't even know where to start. Do I start with a DM? Do I start with the leads? Do I start with refining the offer? Do I make the videos in school? Do I make the hire? Whatever it is. And it's like so difficult for us to choose. And as I've said, our CEO of the brain is on holiday most of the time. So it makes it even more difficult for us. But when we narrow it, your brain goes to work. So we have got something in our brain and in our head, which acts as a filter. And that is called the reticular activating system. So abbreviated is RAS. So its whole job is to show you that what you've told it matters. So the example that I always give is, let's say you all went out today and you bought a yellow Mini. What would be the car you see on the road everywhere for the next few weeks? Right? It'd be a yellow Mini. And it's not because everybody else has also had the great idea of buying a yellow Mini. It's because you have told your brain that that is important, because you've placed weight on it, because you now own it. So that's your reticular activating system as a filter at play. It is scanning every car that it drives by and going, oh, there's another one. There's another one, because you've given it that as a filter. So this is where this plays to our favor. If we pick one thing, i.e. your constraint, and you point your reticular activating system at that by picking your constraint and doing the work we're going to do today, it goes to work for you without you having to constantly think about it. It is going to find solutions and angles that you would likely have just walked straight past. Because if you're not looking for the yellow Mini, you're not going to see it, right? But there's so many studies that go past where people, let's say they're driving and it's like, they've not told them to look for anything in particular. And it's like, cool, how many yellow Minis went past? They're like, fuck knows. It's like, they're the solutions to your problems that we haven't actually been able to see. And that's why this is so effective. And the beauty is that when we do this, time collapses. I've got so many kind of case studies of clients and with myself where we've set a 135, which is what you guys are all pretty familiar with. And we're going to go through that again today, which is a 90-day vision. And because they've highlighted what their constraint was, and they've then created like the one target that needs to be achieved in a 90-day period, they achieve it in like 3 weeks. Right? So like they're able to collapse time from how long they thought it was going to take based on how they've previously operated, because things take ages for us to do, to then just like, I'm focusing on one thing and it happens incredibly quickly. So another kind of like key thing, probably heard this from Hormozy, is that focus isn't about more, right? It isn't about having more discipline. It isn't about cramming more in. It isn't about adding another time hack or productivity hack into the mix. It is the opposite. Focus is about subtraction, right? It is about finding the one thing that holds your business back and removing everything else, getting rid of everything else from your brain for now, so you can focus on the singular thing. And the same is true of your environment, right? Is how do we focus? We don't need more shit in it. We need to remove everything else so that the only possible solution or the only possible thing to do is the thing that we should be doing. Now, I know how your brain works because I've also got one. Part of you wants to go and finish the little things, fix the logo, answer some emails, because doing so, like tinkering with things, especially like in the morning, etc., like that's going to give you a hit of dopamine. Because as soon as we got a tick next to a task that needs to be done, we get a hit of dopamine. So we end up then just like focusing on those, getting to the end of the day feeling productive. But again, the big things haven't actually moved forward. Because ultimately, if we don't touch the constraint, we're just indulging in cheap dopamine, right? It's dopamine, and our brain cannot discern from cheap dopamine and expensive dopamine, let's call it. It all feels the same. So it's like our duty to be able to recognize, like, is this actually the thing that is going to be moving the business forward, or am I just being a busybody? And here's why this is ultimately so powerful for everybody in this room specifically. Number one, you're going to have a single target. Your whole to-do list that I'm sure we've got plenty of just shrinks down to one simple question. Does this break my bottleneck? If no, then you're able to give yourself permission to leave it. And what I'd recommend is having something that I use called a parking lot, which is a document somewhere that are things that still could be done inside of the business, like everything that was inside of that camera lens, but doesn't need to be done right now. Because I think there's a part of us, at least there is for me, and I don't know if you guys agree, where if I have a good idea, because I've got a pretty poor working memory, I get a bit anxious that I'm like, I'm going to forget. So I need to do this like today. But if I then have a capturing system, such as the parking lot, where if I have a great idea, like let's say I have a great idea now, right? And I'm like, oh, I really want to, can we go shoot an ad for a thing? That's not the most important thing, right? I'm here and I should be serving you guys. But so I don't forget that, I can quickly go and write that down on my parking lot and be like, right, cool. I now know that I have a second brain to handle my working memory challenges. And that I see that for a lot of people. Does anybody kind of resonate with that?
Yeah, I think what I found really useful with that was we obviously spent quite a while putting together like my weekly rhythm with the calendar and stuff. And when we separated like work on the business days, like was it maker and manager days, I've got in my Trello like all my part tasks that I want to do that are like not really, they're not really a big constraint, but then I've got them at the start of my week or like sort of Sunday. I'll then plug those tasks into my manager days and just get all of those like sort of tick list ones put into those days. And then I think a big thing that helped was on the maker days we were working on the business, we just pick one thing and it's like we just work at it until it's done. Because quite often I'll feel like because I'll have every now and then I'll have a day where I'll get loads done and I'll feel like, oh, that's what I could do. So I'll try and put loads into a day and then I end up getting nothing done. I'll like touch like 10 minutes of each task.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Improving the 5%.
yeah. So like having the work on business days where it's literally like just complete this offer or just do this has really helped 100%.
Amazing. Love that. And that's literally that at play, right? It's gone
Yeah,
from here's everything I could do today because of my giant to-do list. It's like, here's the one thing that needs to get done.
Yeah.
And if the kind of paradox to this is that like, it feels counterintuitive because it feels like, well, I've got a free day or I've got a working on the business day. Let's get as much done as possible. But because we're scattering and diluting our attention, we actually don't get as much done as possible.
Yeah.
And when we like break it down to the one thing, that's like doing that frequently is what actually moves the business forward because it's like big hits continuously rather than just like little taps.
Something else I think like affects it, or at least for me, is other people as well. Because I think one of my issues is I always feel like I don't have enough time because I've got kids as well, I've got this and that, blah blah blah, and trying to work out what do I actually want to do, and B, then how do I make it worthwhile, whatever. But then inevitably I'll get a call and can you do this? Can you help that? Can you do that? Constantly. And then I think also because I'm really conscious that I'm so 50-50 in the camp of what do I actually want to do, in order to keep everyone else motivated to buy me some more time to decide, then I'm just spinning plates so they stay motivated in that area or whatever else. Because the minute I kind of go off the radar or focus on, other stuff, then I feel like their motivation dips a little bit and stuff like that as well. So just squeezing like your time kind of as much as possible. And I think what else, I suppose it depends when you work close, if you've got a small team and you're working closely with just one or two other people, I think it gets diluted when you're in a bigger team. But it feels so they know like my head booker is sort of my number two, if you like, in the business or whatever. But they've got their own set of what they think is driving things forward, and he's very operational, and great at that side of things. But he also doesn't have the type of brains that we have, very like the palmer brain, plodding along, blah blah blah. And then so I already know that he's thinking, why you have you're having thinking days or time on your own days or this or that when we need to be doing X, Y, Z, blah blah blah. So then I think that's the hardest thing, is just like squeezing the time, and they're feeling like you have to justify it to other people whilst keeping them motivated, whilst buying myself time to decide. But then I guess if I just hurry up and decide, then it might.
That's it.
I'm in between the two of like, I know I want to go online now, but I don't know like what I'm doing with the other stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
And the thing is, as well, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when your current business is doing well,
Yeah.
or you can clearly see it's got the potential to do well, then it's almost like
It's like
the
a
bally
weight.
chain around your neck a little bit to make the decision. Because if you're doing shit and there was no way out or whatever, then you just go, fuck it, I'll forget it. But it's just like, I know that's
I get it.
kind of the hardest
And I
thing.
think it'd be
You
good.
just got to have some balls, I suppose, on the side, right?
Yeah, no one's going to decide for you.
No, that's it. And all I am doing is, I know,
And like
decide it.
the more, I think like the frustration of that is good. Because I think I may have said this to you because you were coming on and you were like getting kind of visibly pissed off. So good. Like I want this to piss you off, and then do something about it. Like make a
The other
decision.
thing is, I've seen lots of other people in this position, not necessarily in the same business, where they will just let it fall apart before they'll make the decision, and then it makes the decision for you, sort of thing.
It's a cop out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. Like it's
I'm so guilty of that as well. It's crazy. But then I put it down to A, the dopamine thing, but then B, also the fact that I don't really know what I want to do. So then I'm like, well, I've got my hit, but if I act all this, and that means I've still got to do more here, and do I even want to do that? Then it goes cold.
and that's that lack of certainty that we're talking about, where we're kind of stood in that place, not able to make a decision. But I think the team element, I think Stephen will have some pretty black and white thinking around that, and just being, I'll let you two talk later, but I'd imagine it'll be like, it's your fucking business. You don't have to justify it to anyone.
No, that's
The other thing I'd like proper lens through is, am I making this complicated or is it genuinely complex? 'Cause if it's like, if I'm making it complicated, I'll just go like, can I delegate
Yeah.
this to someone? If
Yeah,
you can delegate it, fuck it off your plate immediately. If it's genuinely complex decision, then it's time for you to like put the pressure on yourself, set a time, and then decide.
But how do you then determine whether it's complex or not?
Be honest with yourself. Like most decisions, you can come up like if you start making things complicated, but then you put through lens of someone else, and you know someone else has made something happen that's like it's you're making it complicated. But if it's genuine a complex decision, you speak to someone, bounce it off, and like there's this think tank that's created around it, then you can go down like the set time. But most
Because every
decisions
decision's complex to me.
Because even like marketing and stuff, like we have a marketing team as well. And like, am I making this? If we go to them and they go like, "This is what the data shows. This is what we'd recommend doing." But then I'm like, "Well, I've seen that this works and this works." I'm like, I'm just making that fucking complicated for no reason. It's not genuinely a complex decision. So you can get info and just go with that. Where if it's like a personal thing and it is a bit more complex, that's when you've got like set time.
I think on that as well, to like differentiate between the two, is complex is it's actually difficult to solve. But I think a lot of people are in a place where they know what left and right looks like. So that's no longer complex because you have the answers. What was the other one? Making it complicated is making it harder for yourself by not choosing. So the complex is, if you think about a complex problem, it's like, I actually don't have the answer or I don't know the solution. So like that requires like our most valuable use of our time in business as well, which is sitting down and thinking. And there's a saying which is like thinking about thinking. It's like challenging your thinking, right? Not just like accepting the first thing that we say as being like true or gospel, which is obviously what like you guys get the benefit of like working with me is I challenge all of your thinking. And you've all had sessions with me where you've come in with a preconceived idea of either what you're capable of or what is true, and you've left with a different answer, proving that like what goes on up here that isn't always factual. So the complex thing is like, okay, how do I actually solve this problem? I don't know. That requires like sitting down and trying to work it out, which that obviously takes time. So that's like the time delay. Making it complicated is the time delay is not because you're trying to solve it, is that you're trying to decide. And that's where it's like we want to put deadlines on it and we want to call ourselves out where it's like, it's not that you didn't know what either one was going to look like, it's just that you couldn't choose. So that's kind of the difference. Because we did have like a week where it was like, well, what does that look like? But we solved that quite quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's then like, we keep reopening the same loop over and over again and not deciding, not because we don't know what it doesn't look like, because we can't make a decision. That's how I'd probably discern between the two.
I think a big thing that really helped me as well was obviously one thing we spoke about before is me just outsourcing my thinking to AI.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'd be there with Claude for hours, like which decision's the best one? And that's when you know, like you realise that you've not made any progress with your decision making process. So like obviously getting me to start journaling daily has been just so good to just get your actual thoughts out because
That helps so much.
yeah, 100% because like you know AI will make a good case for either, and it's like not coming from you. So like actually,
I've got a really, really good framework that I've built around that using AI.
So my journal entries go into the AI, into my brain. AI reads everything that I'm struggling with, and he points out my blockers. And I talk to our thinking, and I've got a skill which is /red team. So I go to it with an assumption, and he is the enemy team, that he challenges everything that I think about, like, and he's a dick about it as well. So we are sat there, like, rather than him trying to outsourcing my decision making, he is challenging everything apart. And sometimes I tell him to fuck off, and he's like, "Look, you program me like this." I'm like, "Good, you're doing the right thing," but it allows him to really like have clarity. So like, rather than getting him to choose for you, he just presents it back, and you then go, "Oh, okay." So what Jack does, it's like he never tells you what to do. He just lays out, gets you to come to your own conclusion, which is really powerful.
Love it.
I'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to give James a boner today, just talk to him about it. Yeah. Yeah. I found a little spot on his body. Sweet. Number 2 is that it turns work into a hunt, hence hunter brain, right? When we're able to find the choke, smash it like a whack-a-mole, and like watch that number, if it's leads and we've solved that problem, go up. If it's sales and conversion rates, go up, whatever it may be. Like once that goes up, we get a fucking load of dopamine from that as well. That's not the cheap dopamine though. That's the expensive dopamine where they actually mean something to us. And then we find the next. So it allows us to like gamify things. Like you'll probably notice if you reflect on your behaviors, you often inadvertently treat things like little games. I know I do for a lot of things. Like if I'm struggling to do something like domestically, I'm not great at like cleaning the house or washing up or whatever. I do have a cleaner now. Well, to be fair, I've had a cleaner since I was 18. But washing up or doing the garden, I'm like, cool, I've got to get this done in 45 minutes. Right? So like I'm gamifying it and I'm adding urgency because like when we all understand the principles of which our brain operates by, you can start throwing them into so many different things to get our brain to do what we want it to do. And like working in hunts allows us to do that. And then 3, it stops you polishing what doesn't matter yet. No more 2 weeks on the perfect notion whilst you're struggling for leads. No more building things out when we don't yet have customers, whatever it may look like, right? Yes, they are important things, and yes, they're in the pipeline, but it's not the constraint. So I'm going to beat the dead horse until you guys get it. Here's how Elon runs 5 companies. I remember seeing an interview, which like was just really interesting because the guy's hella autistic. Saw an interview where he was asked, how do you run like several billion-dollar companies that are all like groundbreaking? It's like, it blows my mind. Guy's incredibly interesting. Has some gnarly thoughts on a lot of things, but he's an interesting person to kind of like study. And his answer was like just so stupidly boring, but again, kind of puts it into perspective. He literally said like every week I meet with each kind of like key person within my business, like each of the different businesses. And we sit there and we identify what is the biggest problem in the business right now that is like stopping throughput. And then his role inside of the business is throwing every ounce of time, energy, and resource at solving that problem. That's it. That's it. Like if you listen to his interviews, that's all he does, aside from like the visionary work. It's just identifying the constraint, and everything he can do, every waking second, is focusing on that. He's not thinking about the different kind of color schemes we can put on and paint jobs we can put on Teslas. He's not thinking about like, could we put a little picture of Elon on the side of the rocket ship? Like, it's just what is the problem? And that is the only thing that I'm going to go and solve. And as I say, he then throws everything at it. Now, the skill that I want you guys to recognize is that I don't need you to do more. We don't need to continuously be doing more. And this, again, is what we're often culprits of, is adding more stuff in, adding more tactics, adding more opinions, like getting more and more information from different people, hopping on like discovery calls with anybody and everybody we can, getting tons of like leadership advice from like fucking 5 different people, which can muddy the water. We actually need to strip everything back into a single source of truth, spotting the constraint and ruthlessly ignoring everything else. Everything can be worked on. Almost nothing needs to be worked on right now. Now, what catches most people out is that, which is kind of what we were saying earlier, you will find the constraint, you will break it, and then a new one will appear somewhere else. Once Herbie speeds up, someone else then becomes the slowest kid in the line. And that is the game, right? Business and being in business is just solving problems forever. Like if we look at like what business is on a kind of functional level, you're just solving a problem for someone else and they are paying you for the pleasure of doing so. That's how you get paid. The bigger the problem you're able to solve for someone else, the bigger you're able to charge. The same is true internally with the business, right? The more you're able to identify problems, the better your business becomes. So I don't want you to see problems as like the boat sinking, which I think we can get into the mentality of. It's like, oh, fuck, there's another problem that I need to solve now. There's another thing that needs working on. When do I get to the point where my business is free of problems, right? That's when we're thinking about it as a problem is sinking the boat. I actually want you to see it as laying down the next plank on the boat. So every problem you find and then overcome is another plank down, and it builds a stronger boat with every challenge and problem that you solve. So that's just like a reframe that I think will be really helpful. And again, that helps you then to, when you're faced with a problem, stop being paralyzed by it and see it as a good thing. Like I genuinely, any problem that I see inside of my business, I get excited about, because once I'm able to solve it, I'm like, my business is going to be better off as a result. I'm going to be able to provide a better service. And this is what I'm saying. You're very good at this. Like we have a session and then literally the next week it's done. Like when we find a problem on a call, which we always do, because we always will, right? With everybody, I can see your face light up and you're like, I get to do some shit this week, right? And then you go in action incredibly quickly. And that's one of the reasons why your business has like doubled since what? December, January? Which is it like, if we acknowledge that, it's pretty insane. Like you hit your first mil.
Nice.
Right? And you're in a super competitive industry with very low margins. So very, yeah. And you're just a waste man. No. With like notoriously quite low margins and a low order value. Like you're not selling a high ticket product, and they buy once.
Yeah, all of that.
Right? So it's like one of those things which I've been able to recognize is like your ability to act quick, get excited by problems, not see them as like a personal issue, and being like, sweet, the business is going to be better. I'm going to get closer to exiting with every problem that I solve.
I was can't sit on them either.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if I can do something now, I'm like, okay, do it.
Yeah, 100%. So where is your Herbie? I want you to think about this for a second. I'm going to stop talking in a minute and we're going to do some kind of exercises, but question to kind of sit and ponder on. If you fixed one thing and it made everything else easier or unnecessary from like a headache perspective at the moment, what would it be? And if you're still stuck at that point, like follow the swamp. So where does the work pile up? Like, do we have loads of leads or loads of DMs? That's maybe going to be indicative of where something is. Do we have like a churn issue with our talent? That's probably where something is. Do we have a churn issue with clients? So on. A client's not buying frequently, so we're constantly having to chase sales. It's going to give us an understanding, right? Gone through some there. Loads of leads, but no time to deliver. Your choke's likely in delivery. Loads of capacity, but nothing's coming in. It's an attract. The pile points at the pinch. So 2 warnings before we do it. 1, the answer you land on is usually a symptom, not a constraint. I want you guys to recognize this because you're going to be working together in a minute. So often like the thing that we say doesn't always mean it's the constraint. So an example, right? Or like a metaphor we can use. The number that you're most stressed about, like view it as like the thermometer. So, oh my God, my temperature is really high. But that then is not, that's only telling you you've got a fever. It's not telling you then like what the infection is. Does that make sense? So like you're now aware that there's a problem. It's not telling you what the problem is. So like if you recognize, for example, that like my constraint is sales, my close rate's rubbish, that's a thermometer. It might be rubbish because you're bad at sales. So that's the constraint. We need to upskill in sales. But it also could be like showing a high number because you're attracting the wrong type of leads. They are 2 very different constraints that are solved in 2 very different ways. So like just saying I have a sales issue, my conversion rate's low is a symptom. It doesn't tell us like what the actual problem is. So I want you guys to like recognize that and ask each other questions of like digging deeper and trying to find the root of what is actually the problem. Now the second one, where your real constraint hides, might be true for some other people. It's usually in the box that you least want to look at. So maybe it's the messy spreadsheet, the boring systems, the cash figure you keep closing and kind of makes you a bit anxious to look at. I know some people get anxious looking at like their figures. Like for me, it's typically attract. Like I find the delivery, the building of shit, like everything incredibly fun and easy. But when it comes to creating a higher variance of like creative for socials, like running ads and stuff, I know that I need to do them and I put them off. And then I'll go and be like, let's just go have some more client calls, right? Let's go and build some more stuff. So like I need to be aware of this. So like those boxes that I showed you earlier, attract, convert, deliver, scale, like my box is attract. And ultimately we dodge it because it's maybe dull, maybe it makes us feel uncomfortable, maybe there's a lot of work that's required and we tell ourselves that the problem is somewhere else. Maybe it's like marketing. You can't read the label from inside the bottle. This is why we're going to do the next bit together. This is why it's super helpful. So enough of me waffling now. I want you guys to turn to the person next to you. And if you are on the end, we'll do a 3 or something like that. 3, that'll be easier because you guys are there. So pairs. We'll take it in turns. We'll kind of have about 7 minutes each. I want you to help each other find your Herbie. So like draw those 4 boxes, like if needs be, and like figure out where the choke is in that pipeline for you. And the role of the person listening and the guys that are listening is to stress test it. Like, is what they're saying a symptom or is it an actual constraint and the root cause? So like we can try and dig deeper and help each other out and figure out what's causing it. The key here though for this section is I just want you to find it. Right? I don't want you to solve anything just yet. We've got a section for that later. So the key is like by the end of this section, I want you guys to have written down my constraint, I believe, is this.
Now, if you feel like you'd benefit from being in a room like that, full of ambitious founders that know what it's like to have this brain type, then just message me the word inner circle on Instagram. You'll find the link for that under this video.